Hi, I'm John Sobel, co-founder and CEO of Sight Machine. Sight Machine is a digital company that focuses on processing shop floor data for enterprise manufacturers. Today, I have the privilege of hosting a great discussion with 4 leaders of global manufacturers. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Good morning. Let's get started. So glad to be with y'all. May I suggest that each of you give a brief introduction? Bart.
Yeah. My name is Bart Alun. I'm an ex-senior supply chain executive on Johnson & Johnson, retired in October last year. One of my recent roles was Vice President for Strategy, Innovation and Deployment. So happy to be part of this panel.
And I'm Kelly DiPuccio. Similar, I recently retired from General Motors just a few months ago. My last role was as Vice President of Global Manufacturing Engineering. I'd spent 34 years there and had manufacturing operations, manufacturing engineering. It's in my core, and I'm really excited to be a part of this.
Good morning. My name is Magdi Batato. I am also recently retired, January this year from the Nestle Group, food manufacturer. My last job was Chief Operations Officer for the group based on our headquarters in Switzerland. And as such, the way we are organized, I was overlooking procurement, manufacturing, supply chain, as well as ESG, sustainability matters. I'm very happy to be with the team here this morning and with yourself, Joe.
Maciek Stawicki, Procter & Gamble, VP of Global Manufacturing, not retired yet. So 31 years in the company, and thanks for having me.
Oh, fantastic. You guys have collectively many decades of experience, and in the last decade, there's been so much focus on digital and Industry 4.0. We have some guidance from the participants in the conference. One of the top topics people want some advice on is workforce development. This is something that I know you all have thought about a lot, and is very current. Any thoughts on where that's headed and what our guests should be thinking about?
Well, since you brought up digital transformation, I think there has to be a deliberate focus on workforce development along with that. We can't get sidetracked into just technology and the shiny penny of that. It's really important that we think about the people, and not just how the people integrate with that, but how we are upskilling, reskilling, and bringing them along. And I think it's really twofold. Some of it's the workforce development for the actual technologies and learning to interface with them, and at different generations, whether it's millennials or Gen X or new employees, tenured employees. I think that's really important to look at how we're doing that. But in addition to the technology part of it, I think some of the soft skills, there needs to be workforce development on the soft skills on how to lead through that, how to manage that, because it is different. It is different if we don't focus on that, on how our people lead both through that technology and with that technology. I think we'll do ourselves a disservice. So I think it's really important to look at both aspects.
And I think building on that, skilling of the workforce has always been critical in all the, let's say, transformations we've gone through in manufacturing, from the continuous improvement efforts, the TPMs, etc. Now digital. But I think building on what you said, what becomes more prevalent is the engagement of the workforce. So I think they need to be much more part of it and own it and drive it themselves. Like you said, Magdi, in your presentation, leadership guides and the ownership is with the people. The other thing is, what I've experienced is it becomes much more important to give context to people about the transformation you're doing. In the past, this was a transformation, we want to do lean, and they do their thing as part of it. Now it's almost upside down. In order for them to lead it, they need to fully understand what is the context, what is the intent, the purpose, what is the business purpose of this, what we're going to do here, and then they can be a bigger part of it. Because like you also gave the examples at the end, they're doing the job every day, so they know best how it can be improved, right? And if we engage them in the right way and they have the ownership and a stake in it, it will definitely be a success. So I think that's a shift I've experienced, which is important as leaders to take into account and to live into.
I think we should not fall into the trap of putting productivity as the number one outcome of what we do with technology, because I think there is much more to it. And, if you face a bunch of people and you tell them this is to be more optimal, and then what is it in for them as people, as assets, as talents? And I think this technology and all what we see happening on the shop floor, be it AI, be it automation, it's more for growth than only for productivity. Of course, we will have benefits in productivity, but it's more for growth, individual growth. That's why, upskilling people is so important, but also growth of the brands. In the case of Nestle, it's a brand company, volume growth, etc. But all this, it's around really growing. It's around becoming better, having better brands, having better products, being better individuals. And then productivity is, of course, part of it, but it's not why we do that. There is a bigger sense of purpose as to why we do that. I think it's important because, people will see the negative part of it if we only focus on productivity. I think we should focus on the positive part, what comes out of it.
And from my perspective, it's interesting how you capture these points because in P&G the core of our IWS Integrated Work System program is the 100 and 0. 100, which means that 100% ownership and 0 loss mentality. So if you combine both what you have said, within the people on the floor that own the area or equipment and losses and work with zero mindset to eliminate these losses to zero, if they understand what loss they need to eliminate, I have seen multiple examples that regardless what generation the people are, if they understand that there is no other option they can eliminate the loss other than leveraging the data that exists in the system and using this data to help them eliminate the next level of loss that cannot be eliminated purely via human senses and brain, this becomes a very smooth transition, and it's not seen as a threat. As a matter of fact, it is a key enabler for them to deliver better results. So 100% agree.
I want to build on Magic's point about the people and how they see that with losses. I remember more than 30 years ago when I started my career on the shop floor, there were no reports, no automated things. But entering the premises, I used to know whether it was a bad night, a bad day before or not, because people were stressed if it was a bad day. They were spending their time collecting waste and losses on the machines. And, when it comes to any type of manufacturing, you have all of that you described. And a good day was where people were smiling because so far the machines were running very well. So I think eliminating losses and having a smooth day makes people happier. So there is a connection between the quality of your life in manufacturing and the quality of the tools you choose and the losses you have.
So everyone's nodding, and the conversation took a fascinating direction into growth and quality and having more good days than bad days. It's been hard for the last decade to make a lot of this happen. And if you could give any advice to the companies that are creating tools for the workforce, how hard or easy should the tools be? Here's what I mean by that. There's all this data. There's all these very complex systems. We're upskilling. We're asking people to make judgments. How do we make this real and practical and get out of data land and all these complicated things going on? AI sounds very complicated to people. In the rest of our lives, we have stuff on our phones. Things are pretty easy. If you could wave a wand and have what you want in the plant today that you've worked with for decades, what would you change? What would you make happen?
I think one aha moment for me was when I visited the Porsche plant many years back in Stuttgart. And I was amazed to see that everything was built around the operator. Everything, because there is a takt time, and we know all of that in our lean studies, the takt is imposed by the chain and the speed of the chain of cars. And every so many seconds, you have one car at the end. But everything, the position of the operator was to make the operator efficient and comfortable. Otherwise, he or she would not have the time to accomplish the tasks that they should do within that amount of seconds or whatever. And this was an inspiration. And when we started this process in Nestle, we talked about operator centricity. Everything should be built around the operator. So making sure that the operator was part of some of that design, and today with digital twins and all of that, we can do that. We can have one day on the shop floor with an operator. How does it look like? And by adding some of those tools, how will it look like? I think it's key to take into consideration what works well for the operator.
Yeah. So I agree definitely, right? It's putting people in the center versus the product and the process, right? There have been days it was, with the Six Sigma and the like, a lot was focused on process improvements, which is very true. But at the end, I think we realized over the last years, with all the big transformations, definitely digital, that people actually need to be in the center because they are ultimately making the difference. You can have the perfect process, you can have the nicest technology, but it's people at the end that make it happen. So I fully agree to put the people in the center. The other aspect too that is to make the absorption of these things successful is, I think, shift from a training approach to a learning approach, right? So the training approach, people get bombarded with all these things and they get trained to use this. If you turn it into a learning by doing approach, it's much better absorbable, it's easier, and then you can tailor it to the person's needs, right? If to do the job, these are the 2-3 tools they need, you can build a learning journey for them to learn to work with that tool, versus you train them and know that they would potentially need, which are 50 tools, and they give up. So I think putting them in the center, think from their perspective, how do they look at this, what they need today, tomorrow is another day, take it in piecemeal fashion, and a learning approach, the learning by doing, I think this makes it best for everybody.
Yeah, and to double click on that, Bart, especially that learning by doing, so it's important to have the context like we saw this morning, labs and things that are line side and things that can be accessible and in your own backyard, so to speak, to be able to do it. But that learning journey, because let's not kid ourselves, this technology is going to continue changing. It's going to continue evolving. So like you said, like the tomorrow, right? Then if we prepare people on how to learn and focus on that learning, it gets back to growth, which what you had talked about, growth for the person, turns into growth for the enterprise, right? Like it's both of those things. Connected. So I really like that, you're highlighting that learning journey of this, and that's how we need to engage in our folks. It's not training, it's learning.
And the other thing is, I forgot, is the learning journey together. For the workforce, if you drive that connection and connectivity and let people go along the learn journey together, not on their own, that's another big thing, right? They're in the same boat, they can learn from each other, they help each other. It also helps to lower those barriers for adoption of these technologies. So, yeah.
And they will learn if they understand why they are learning, why they need to learn. For me, the building on this people and the center is what problems are we trying to solve? Okay. If I'm a person, if I'm an equipment owner of the equipment, is it a problem with hundreds of touches that I need to do to perform the task? So it is a, if you like, efficiency problem, or is it a problem of being simply effective? Coming back to your point about the stress, I'm not quite sure whether this will pass our comms, but we still have in some of our factories an ancient kind of a way of, for example, checking the quality. Sometimes even we use a ruler, and then in statistical control methods versus having vision-enabled AI systems that 100% are accurate and avoid problems that take away the stress. So I think that as long as we are very clear what problem we are solving, I think that we'll have absolutely no issues with people that will want to learn and then will absorb because it helps them, after all, to be more effective and efficient at the same time.
I think this question of what problem we want to solve is key, because the trend of, and as you said, Kelly, as well, the technology is evolving. And the danger is that we'll just do it for the sake of doing it.
Yeah.
And it will become like a hype. And then we haven't improved anything. We haven't solved any problem. But people need to know, is it for our own safety? Is it for the quality of the product? For the safety of the product? Is it for what we're doing what? And I think that is key, because otherwise you get lost in this forest of new technologies.
Yes.
And then you finally look at our iPhones or any type of phone, there is so much that you can do. But each one of us focuses on what he or she needs from this. Otherwise, you lose your time looking at your phone the whole day without really doing anything. So outcome-based, which is also the learning that Bart was talking about. Define what you want to solve, what you want to improve, etc.
And translating that in kind of like the theme of your program has always been powerful in my experience, right? So when you talk about the quality improvement programs, but you could talk about that to the people versus you say, this is about zero defect. Everybody gets that, right? If you want to get to zero defect, you don't need to explain too much. So building on what you said, the why and the intent of the efforts, if you then crystallize it in a strong, powerful statement or a quote, this does a lot bringing people along. I remember when we did continuous improvement and that next gen of operating systems in manufacturing, we didn't call it like our operating system. Our quote was make to win. So was the notion is manufacturing is there to win in the business, right? To drive business impact. And this was catchy and people got it, right? Because,
Unfortunately, this is, and I remember that, do not remember the exact quote on the percentage, but there is a very high percentage of the companies that are dissatisfied with the progress on the Industry 4.0. And I think that for me and my personal perspective is that sometimes the companies and an executive look at the the digitization as a ring of power, like Gollum, being hypnotized with the shiny object, versus really understanding what is the purpose and what is the tool for specific purpose. And so I think it's not only the question of transforming the culture, but also it's a question of whether the specific program has the right return on investment. Otherwise, you are just spending money for a very expensive toy. Absolutely.
Now, another angle I want to bring is for AI, but more specifically Gen AI tools, to the point of it's a shiny object. One needs to know what it does and what it does not. We all know, for example, that Gen AI has hallucination rates of 3 to 5%. So if you misuse those tools, take, for example, a Gen AI that you use as a banal search engine. It's not a search engine. You will not have the accuracy you want. It's a machine learning tool. It's a transformative tool. It's different. So if you start to use things the wrong way, then you will spend money without having the outcome you want. But also, these technologies are dirty so far from an environmental standpoint. They are very energy intensive. They are also, the carbon footprint of those utilizations is not little. Of course, it will evolve as we move forward. We'll find ways and means to make it more green. But this angle is also important. So it's not only for the money spent, but it's also for the impact on the environment. And it's also at the end, of course, not the outcome you want to do, will be disappointed. So I think understanding the tools is key. And that's probably the role of the leaders. You can't throw it at the feet of the operators for them to distinguish what they need from what they don't need. You listen to them, of course, but it's the role of the leader to kind of put the appropriate things for the appropriate problem, as Maciek was saying, to be solved.
When you think about today's workforce, in the United States, there's a tremendous number of unfilled jobs in plants. There's a lot of turnover. Do you see any differences as far as what people are looking for? Purpose, the fit of the tools, any sense of how expectations are changing among frontline workforce? What do people want? Because clearly you all are thinking about how to really engage and support the people who are doing the work every day. What's your sense of what people want going forward from technology in general?
I'm not sure whether from the technology. I think that technology is just one element of it. I believe that people, and I'm not quite sure whether it's so much different versus the past. How we do this is different probably, and the challenges are different. But I think that, as we discussed, everybody wants to be great. People want to be valued. They want to be inspired. They want to be, of course, rewarded properly. And they want to make an impact. They want to see that what they do is making a difference. And then, of course, this impact, depending on where you are, it's not only the impact on the results and the contribution to the company, but the impact these days on the environment, impact on the community. So there are multi facets of the impact. And then, of course, as part of the inspiration for the new generation, maybe, the new world is digital, etc. We need to understand, of course, they are inspired by different things than probably people some years back. But for me, the universal are these four factors in general.
Well, yeah, I think these fundamentals are always there. But I see there are certain shifts coming, right, with the Gen Z. So clearly, I think they're looking for more purpose-driven organizations. So I think this Gen Z is more focused on what is the purpose of that organization I'm working for. They want to identify it with that value proposition of the company. You talked about sustainability. They're much more focused on the environment. And the third thing I would say is they have different views on work versus your private life, right? So the whole notion of work-life balance is a whole different conversation than our generation, right? So I agree the foundation and the basics are still there, but the overlay, the contextual thinking of people is changing, particularly with that Gen Z. You see that shift.
I agree, right? Especially, how much they're willing to work. Whatever. Like I think of when I started, everybody wanted overtime and everybody wanted to be there. And also you were a little bit measured by how much you worked and what you did. And all of that has shifted. So it has to get back to that core of purpose and contribution and that pride of I made a difference. And especially the good thing in manufacturing is we do make things. Right. So
tangible.
Yes, it's tangible. There's that opportunity. So being able to connect people to that and connecting them to a purpose and a mission. And I agree, climate sustainability is all very important for people. And so that's something else to really factor in to make sure that as we're, you mentioned it earlier, Bart, kind of talking about the why and kind of connecting people. We have to sometimes help connect all those dots for our team members. They don't necessarily always see it or connect it back to the safety of how I do something, matters to the safety of, they see their small part and think, but, connecting all that. And our job as leaders is to help make that connection for them too on a regular basis.
I agree with all what has been said. I think our job is to put a conducive environment in place that gives the sense of purpose, that helps connect, etc. But we should also remain pragmatic, not to be completely sometimes disappointed. We will face, with those technologies evolving, some parts of the organization that cannot adapt or that is unwilling or unable to adapt. And I mean, we are all 3 out of 4, we are retired around this table. People would want
we're so important, at least for a little while.
Some people would want to kind of move on, so we need also to find a way to, be it give them a comfortable package or do a reorganization. These are parts of the realities of life, so we should not all paint it in its rosy and everybody would be connected. In some cases, some people would rather want out. That's not why we went out, by the way. It's just to say that we need to be also pragmatic enough. The other, I think, point on Gen Z, and I agree with Bart, but they are less loyal, but this is the nature of things. I mean, when I see my own children, they've changed already 3 jobs or 4 jobs, and one is 27, the other one is 30. It's okay.
Yeah.
People like to go to learn. It's a part of the learning path. It's part of the learning experience. So we should not judge them with our eyes of baby boomers that we remain loyal to our companies for 30 years plus. Leaving a company does not mean they don't like it necessarily. Some of them might, but if the environment is conducive, if the sense of purpose is there, etc., but they will still leave because they want to learn to develop differently. And sometimes creating good alumni will bring them back. So that's also important. So let's not think that if we do all those things, people will stay for 30 years. Gen Z, they think differently, and the loyalty is less. It's a bit different. The relationship is different, but it's not bad. So I think being open also to those points of views is not necessary.
But I think, and that there is still, again, the old-fashioned thing that remains the same. To a large degree, people do not leave the company. There is also another dimension. People very often leave their boss.
That's true.
It is. I think that relationship with manager and connection, personal engagement, understanding what this person is from the personal standpoint, the values, etc., is a universal element that unfortunately still is very often the reason why people change. So I think that we always also need to keep this in mind, that it's not only the new things that come into play. There are also certain universal elements that have a big impact.
I'm going to ask an intentionally provocative question. There's a lot of aspiration around the table. You are sharing really compelling views of purpose and growth and what these tools and what good management should do for manufacturers. And each of you, for at least the last decade, has been leading a lot of change in your organization. Well, it's been hard when you abstract from it and think about, so all the statistics are that huge amount of money is being invested in transformation. We have yet to see the productivity bump. We will. The breakthrough of the productivity plateau. There's also change is hard. And when you reflect on what's been hard, that's probably hard for everybody. Are there any areas that you would nominate for exploration or discussion? Because clearly this isn't easy. It's important. Manufacturing, largest sector in the global economy. So we got to get this right. What advice would you give for people to focus on?
You're particularly talking about the technology, digital technology transformation, or
all of it. I mean,
all of it. Okay.
Clearly the way you all are thinking about it, and it sounds to me exactly right. Technology is a piece, management, culture, sustainability. So everybody knows what we got to do, and the ideas are simple. The work is hard. When you think about why it's hard and what you would encourage our guests to think about as a takeaway, because we got a lot of experience around the table here, and sometimes it's hard to get a distant view of close things. Everybody here has been living it. What would you share with people as, man, if I could fix this thing about companies or how it all works, the tech? And it's intensely provocative question.
No, it is. And I think we should step back and learn from the past. If you look in the context of things, manufacturing has been a bit the orphan and has been offshored, outsourced in some developed countries towards countries that had lower costs. So without, it's unintended consequence of what we have done. And one of the unintended consequences is that we have transformed the manufacturing into mercenary type of approach, not into building long-term sustainable growth. Without knowing, that's what we did. It doesn't work here, it's too expensive, I don't care, I'm not going to train anybody, I just move it to this location, it's cheaper, it will attract jobs there, but not here. So here, what happened in this location where you outsource to another location, people thought, okay, I'll just then make the best out of it. Take the money I can take, tomorrow I might become redundant, and then why should I invest more of my time and effort into that? So this is part of the unintended consequences. Until COVID came and we realized that globalization is not the only answer to everything. Regionalization and localization is also good. And people started to bring back few things and to either near shore or friend shore. The new term in supply chain is putting it in friendly countries as opposed to putting it in countries that are probably less friendly. So I think if we step back and look at the history of what happened, I think now it's about the time, if we mean it, is to be authentic about what we say and about what we do, because otherwise we will not be credible, whatever we do. Mm-hmm. And mind you, manufacturing is very different from one place to the other. For example, in countries that have lower happiness indices and life is not so great, etc., you have challenges, you have conflicts, you have wars, you have poverty. Then big companies have established state-of-the-art manufacturing facilities, and people go there, and for them it's a safe haven. They work there to forget their daily lives. The work becomes, in the balance of private, the work becomes the place to be, because you have a fantastic canteen, you have a fantastic dormitories, you have fantastic setups, which they don't have even at home. So they will just work very hard, because they feel they owe something to the company. They relate to the company. It's like a family. In developed countries, we are not hungry enough, unfortunately. So we have all the comfort we need. So manufacturing becomes, why should I work 1 hour more? Why should I, make those efforts? And I think there is a rebalancing now that is happening after COVID and all the learnings. And we need to take this opportunity. There is this opportunity of having understood that regionalization is important, not only globalization, and there is the second technology opportunity. And if we take both opportunities and try to do it right this time, try to do it probably in a more authentic way and not looking only at the short term, but a bit a longer term view, then maybe we will regain credibility of manufacturing. I think let's look at what we have done before to be able to learn from that and not repeat the same thing.
Yeah, I'd like to add two things. One is building on this, rebuilding the reputation of manufacturing. I think with the current technology innovation wave, right, I 4.0, I think this is a huge opportunity for us to really establish manufacturing as a business enabler and transformer, actually, because if you look, to me, one of the biggest impacts and what is different with this transformation versus previous transformations is that with digital and the other technologies, we drive impact way beyond manufacturing, right? The whole thing was, like you said, was all about cost and productivity and quality and reliability. But now the biggest impact of I 4.0 is business and customer related. It's speed to market, it's product development acceleration, right? It's customization. Innovation. So this, I think, is a huge opportunity, and some of it was visible with COVID, became apparent, but now even more, given that we are kind of 5 years later already in I 4.0 era, we can make even a bigger impact on the business. And that, I think, is the opportunity for manufacturing, to get away from the perception, the sound of silence, you're a cost center, you're taken for granted, a pain in the ass, right? To a true equal business partner at the table with the marketing and sales people, the R&D people. But the other thing I like to add is, coming back on your question, to me, in every transformation, the most difficult part is the change management. Because that's the most difficult thing for people. They have to change a way of working they were used to. And for all of us, this is the biggest challenge. We can train the people in the new thing and all of that, but at the end, the crux of it is, I have to change the way I've been working for so long. And you're uncertain, and that's the biggest challenge I experienced in all of these transformations, and that's the constant. Every time again, you bump upon this. How you will take care of the people to manage through the change and make them comfortable, that the new world is good and that they will thrive again. But that holding on to the past is always something, a dynamic, which is hard to manage for everybody. Also as leaders, right? Right. We are not different.
Yeah. And I agree with both of the points that you've made, and I'll add an additional one, right? Yeah, so, focus. That's the other thing that I think, like, going back, you can do anything, but you can't do everything. And so really being able to focus and not just, and not have, okay, well, now this is the next thing, or this is the next, okay, if we're going to go do that, we have to go look back. I'm going to point at the table because we have to look at our strategy. What's our strategy, and not just being reactive to something. No, obviously the business needs, sometimes we have to pivot.
Define what's your core competence.
Right, exactly, yeah. What do you do well? What? So I think that's a key thing, is really like what do you want to focus on? What are the things instead? If you decide you're going to pivot, go back to your strategy and say, well, what is the underlying strategy, and why do we want to do this, and how do we, and what things do we maybe not do, or change the horizon, the time horizon of, so that everything isn't everything in now. So I think just looking back, I think really being able to communicate that focus, be very transparent about it, be very willing to talk about it openly, is really important.
I think it's an outstanding point. And I am particular fan of
happen. What has to happen at the leadership level of the enterprise manufacturer to get the focus and the clarity about change? Who really drives this? You hear people talk a lot about IT/OT convergence, and that's sort of a tactical lens. When we think about who holds the vision of this and how you make this happen in a company, what group of people has to come together? And is that the same or different from an efficiency regime?
I think for me, it starts with the CEO, not even the head of operations, because to Ken's point about what do we do? Are we a manufacturing company or not? Some companies might decide they are not a manufacturing company. Then they can outsource, and they should. They could put this into other hands, and they are probably more of a brand building company. They don't want to integrate vertically. It's their right. It's the understanding of the end-to-end value chain. Where does value come from with the people you have, with the assets you have? And unless you want to transform drastically the company, maybe you are happy with what you do and you're good at what you do, and you should not do something else. So it should come from the top. And the CEO needs to make it very clear, of course, with the C-suite, that this is what we believe we are in the company, and this is the value we add to the company. And then manufacturing, is it part of that roadmap directly in our company or indirectly by using, other... and that's okay. So you need to provide that transparency to the workforce, to everybody, because then it becomes clear what's the weight of manufacturing in this company.
But of course, it cascades. But there is in my opinion, there is one specific role that plays is particularly important in this process, which is the plant manager. We all operate in big companies that have sometimes naturally matrix structures. We have sometimes, dotted lines, and there is a general manager of this country and that country that we serve. There is a business unit management line, and the plant manager, after all, is the person to put a stick in the sand and say, okay, I can hear you all. This is how we are going to do the work, and these are the critical few versus trivial many for this particular time. I think that, and it's difficult. This is the most difficult from my perspective. This is the most difficult part of the role of the plant manager, is to make this call, because he or she is the only person on the ground that really knows how much the organization with the current capability state can absorb and how fast. Nobody else, because pressure will be everywhere. And the plant manager is the one to make this filtering happen.
Such an interesting observation. It matches with our limited experience at our company. We found that when a plant manager seizes the mantle and is sort of the first person to really dig into it. He or she catalyzes change for the whole organization. Do you feel plant managers are getting clear direction and the right incentives to do this? So if you think about what a plant manager is rewarded and measured on, and then we're asking them to lead change, do you think organizations are yet assigning that role to plant managers, or is it the brave few who do it in spite of their incentive structure?
I think it's more about the choice of the plant managers more than the incentive schemes. I feel, of course, you can improve the incentive scheme and add this or subtract that. But I think to the point of Maciek, we have chosen sometimes plant managers because of their technical skills. Okay. Only. And that's probably not the right thing to do.
I see.
Because plant managers are first and foremost general managers.
Yes.
There are many general managers of their site. They have HR to deal with challenges, financial challenges, quality, safety. So it's not only about technical engineering or manufacturing, production on the line. It's much more than that. It's dealing with people, dealing with assets, dealing with products, etc. So I think we need to revisit what is the profile of the plant manager and how he or she should be fitting into this. The other one, of course, plant managers are sometimes a stepping stone job to a bigger job. And sometimes we tell people, look, to get that bigger job, plant management experience is key. But if he or she are not this type of person, then they should not. To become a plant manager, you need to love people.
You say how important the plant manager role is to really communicate that. So first of all, at most of the plants, let's face it, people who work in the plant, they see the plant manager on a regular basis. Sometimes they only see the CEO on TV, right? So I mean, like you're looking at that. That's really the face of the company and the leadership. So I think that's where that's really important. I also think it's important. We talked about this in one of the discussions this morning about swimming in your lane, right? And knowing, and every plant has a different purpose or a different, segment of the roadmap on what they're doing for the companies, the enterprise's overall vision and journey. So it's important to have the right kind of leader in at the right time and at the right place, but also for that site to know where they fit in. And I'll just say as an example, right? And as an example, clearly General Motors has a vision of an all-electric future, and we have plants that are converting, from ICE to EV. And we had plant directors nervous, full-size truck, hey, we're all ICE service. No, your role in the company is pivotal, is critical. It's paramount to our success and to our growth and our customers and what they want. So it's really interesting on making sure that each one of the plant directors is that kind of see where they fit into the picture, because it's an important puzzle where if a couple puzzle pieces are missing, it doesn't look the same or it doesn't look right.
And in that, building on all that, right, so we talked about the role of the CEO and the C-suite. We talked a lot about the plants now, and yes, the landscape is changing and the role of the plants is changing. But I think in this whole change journey and transformation, the layer in between, the supply chain leadership, I think, plays a critical role in driving into the right direction. So, and with that, I mean, not all organizations have that, but an end-to-end supply chain leader, right, that owns procurement and sourcing, manufacturing, distribution, truly end-to-end. Because for that leader, I think in the new world, there is the biggest change. Because in the past, these people were managing their supply chain, kind of the aggregation of the functions, right? I have a procurement organization, I have a planning organization, I have manufacturing, I have distribution, I have engineering. It was kind of a conglomerate of functions. And they need to really pivot to that end-to-end orchestration. How do I orchestrate my supply chain end-to-end? The supply chain is only as strong as the combination of the elements, right? So we need to really drive a mindset, we shift away from that pure focus on functional excellence. It is important, but it's the end-to-end that matters. They need to drive that pivot from product and process focus to human centricity. They need to be that integrator, right? They need to orchestrate ecosystems now. There is collaboration. We haven't talked about that yet, but the internal collaboration is definitely important for manufacturing with all these other functions. But the external collaboration, definitely with technology, with academia, consortia, tech providers, other industries. We must be much more open to work together with other industries, because you talked about you only know how good you are if you compare with external. Mm-hmm. Well, the external, to me, in a lot of cases, is not your own industry, it's another industry.
Yes, right? Well. I like the story about connecting and the ecosystem. Actually, in every panel, when I have the opportunity, I advocate the banning of the word of supply chain.
Nice.
It's a terrible word, because supply chain is not a chain to start with.
Right.
Because the chain is as strong as its weakest link, is not the case. And secondly, supply chain, it's this sequential.
Yeah.
It's not sequential. It's an ecosystem.
It's a network.
As Bart was saying, it's a network. And you need to be comfortable to manage and coordinate this network and this ecosystem. So if anything, we need to be strong enough to say, please don't call it supply chain anymore. Call it an ecosystem, connecting the dots, networking, how the consumer can be linked to the suppliers and to the plant manager. It's an ecosystem.
May I pick up on what you all are saying? I think this is a fascinating theme. We don't want to say chain. We want to talk about an ecosystem. We want to think about collaboration and looking outside our company. Mm-hmm. So much of the efficiency regime has been about get the lowest cost, push down on this. And so we come back to culture, leadership, CEO, plant manager, it's all people. How do we successfully shift focus to these larger, somewhat new ideas for traditional organizations while remaining excellent, focused, crisp, profitable? This is a big thing to change from the supply chain mindset to the 21st century mindset. How do we do that?
I hope that tomorrow I will share one example which I think it would answer this question. I think we get ourselves cornered into this relationship of master and servant, manufacturing being a servant to a commercial master. Mm-hmm. I think that there is a way to do this, but you need to earn the right. If you don't have your house in order in manufacturing, if you are sitting on losses left, right, and center, you don't gain this right. Once you are running very highly predictable operation, you also start be able to influence. Coming back to what was said, I have several examples where the plant managers actually work together with the R&D, with the marketing, with sales to really, and of course other disciplines of product supply, to really address, and I will share the example tomorrow, to really address the business problems to be solved on the specific market. And then all of a sudden, from being a servant to a master, you become a true business partner. Not only sitting at the table, because sometimes we sit at the table. It's not a matter of sitting at the table. It's a matter of using a chair.
Yep.
And this where you change the game and you become an influential, equal partner.
I think that is exactly it. I remember, right, with this whole digital transformation, we really leveraged a lot 3D printing, right? For example, in orthopedic business, to start making personalized orthopedic implants. And that was a moment when then one of the bigger platforms in the product portfolio was pivoted to a 3D printed version. And the business saw this huge impact and the pull from the hospitals for that technology to really change the business model, right? How we operate with hospitals. Because in the past, and still in a lot of cases, the whole logistics stream around orthopedic surgeries is immense, right? All the different sizes. I don't know whether you know, but if you go into a surgery room, there is about $150,000 of equipment going in, different implants, different instruments, and only 10,000 or 15 is used because you only know what the patient will need when you do the surgery. So with this 3D printed technology, you can customize it, and it's a game changer. The business picks on that, and all of a sudden, yes, you become important for the business because they change their model, and it drives huge business benefits, right? So yeah, I think technology has, and I think will continue to be, if we do it smartly, our weapon to become that true business transformer, right? Because the sky is the limit, if you think about it. The impact we can have on that, particularly on the customer, and the customer drives the business, right?
That's such a wonderful conversation. You know, so often at these conferences, we all talk about this or that technology tool, but you all are taking it to a very high level around empowering the front line, empowering manufacturing as a discipline to be a business partner, which is a really interesting insight because I think so many people assume plants have power, plants are listened to, but as you point out, you have to earn that right and then use that influence. Any closing thoughts? You all have shared wonderful insight about where we are, where we've been, where we need to go. Any closing thoughts as you think about the next 5 years in manufacturing? Nobody saw COVID coming, so no one's going to hold you to what you say. But when you look ahead, what do you see?
I think we need to be open because technology is evolving. It has been said. I don't think we should put cast in stone any roadmap. I think be open, be pragmatic. We are all evolving in a sort of plasma organization. I think understanding what this company is about and what does it need to do or not. Again, if manufacturing is a core of this company, then it needs to have a seat at the table. It should be a business partner. But if it's not core for this industry, or then it will be core for the other people who help this industry. But I think be open. I think I like also the point of looking outside your own business, looking at the evolution outside your own field. And also, I think, not be scared to learn. I think the day we even leaders, even CEOs, the day they stop learning and stop listening, it will be a drama. It will be the death of everybody. I think we need to continue to learn and to continue to watch for opportunities. That would be my thought on the future.
Dan, just like you said, you don't expect us to predict what's going to happen, right? Just like you didn't predict COVID. I think the one thing we can predict is it's going to look infinitely different in the next 5 years, 10 years. So I think that one, we could all, put some money on. So I think it's really important that we do focus on agility and flexibility. And when you talk about like that connectedness and that ecosystem, that's how you make sure that you can all kind of, move, move and adapt together. So I think that's going to be where the winners will surface. So.
Yeah. I would say, I agree, it will be about agility and adaptability. The only thing we're certain about is that the future will be different and we don't know what it will be. But to me, what we know is we always need to stay focused on our people and on our customer. If we do that, we'll be successful. Do what your customer needs and expects, and make sure that your people are taken care of, that they are equipped with the tools and the capabilities they need, that they feel empowered, they feel valued. The basic values that were shared, I think then that's the only thing we can actually do, but never lose our eyes of those two things.
And I think that we have a great opportunity, and I'm not sure whether I will not join the team here, in terms of my stage of my career before this happens. But I think that there is a huge opportunity for manufacturing, because I can see already what's happening when we step out from manufacturing node across all of the other nodes, from the supplier to the customer. Apologies of the supply chain, but I think that there is a even bigger opportunity with us showing the impact, crossing the boundaries within the disciplines of the product supply. I think that the next step is to cross the boundaries with our mindset of ownership and zero loss mentality into the sales organization. I think that there are, if we look at this, if we brought the culture and rigor in executing standards, I'm not talking about marketing, but sales, I believe that we would have unlocked another huge potential of recoverable losses for
the sales factor
with the benefit of the whole company.
Manufacturing does have a lot to teach other disciplines. You all have brought amazing experience and heart to this conversation. It's been a great pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
You've been listening to another episode of Executive Platform's Blueprint podcast series. Thanks for joining us.